Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak about a topic which is sort of new in India and I would say globally as well, methanol. I know there is a lot of discussion about ethanol, hydrogen somewhere. I'm trying to fit in methanol in this whole landscape of energy mix. Uh, Next slide. This is working? Thank you. So basically, I'll just introduce what my organization does. Methanol Institute is basically a global trade association for the methanol industry. We are a member-driven organization, so you can see the list of our members cascade down from tier 1 to tier 4. The tier 1 include members from the methanol producers industry, and tier 2, tier 3 are the distributors for methanol. Tier 4 is actually something which is very interesting in terms of looking at, the technology providers. So they are sort of looking at, the emerging applications of methanol. So predominantly, methanol was being utilized as a commodity product for the chemical industry, but now a lot of interest has garnered in terms of looking at, different applications for utilizing methanol as a fuel. The basics of methanol in terms of just, what exactly the capacity is. At this point of time, we are looking at 88.7 million metric tons of global methanol demand. That is the production currently at this point of time. And you can see from 2018 to 2019 and even, to 2023, there has been an increase in terms of looking at utilizing methanol. You do see a big share in terms of, the pie chart that predominantly it's being utilized still as a commodity product, but there is a significant increase in terms of utilizing for methanol applications. I think I'll just briefly touch upon different applications. In my next slides, I will sort of put more focus on the production aspect to the methanol. So in terms of the methanol application side, it's being used as a road transport fuel. Likewise, how ethanol is being used. Also for the marine industry. So there's a big push in terms of the maritime industry to look at methanol, because it's methanol is something which is an emerging solution for the hard to abate industry. So it's kind of picking up pace in the maritime industry. And there are other applications as well, such as the power generation, also for cooking fuel. So there was a program by Niti Aayog back in 2019 to look at how methanol cook stoves could be promoted in remote regions as well, just as a replacement to LPG. And there were about 300 methanol cook stoves that were being sold in the Assam region with the help of Assam Petrochemicals, who produce close to 500 tons per day of methanol in the region. And that's one of the largest domestic producers. So there's a big challenge in terms of the production capacities domestically in India for methanol. But still, there has been a significant push in terms of the government and even now industry looking at producing green or I would say renewable methanol. So basically, this is the distinction in terms of low carbon. I mean, there are different terms that we've been utilizing within the industry, and we're trying to come to a particular, or I would say a uniformed approach in terms of the color coding that we have done. So from brown, gray, blue to green. So these are the different feedstocks, and we try to look at the sources of material as well. So obviously the brown would be the coal part, and then we sort of move to the gray, which is the natural gas, and then the blue part would be the biomethanol, which is agricultural waste, municipal solid waste, and then green would be looking at biogenic sources of CO2 and utilizing CCUS as well as green hydrogen, which is, so green methanol is close to 11% of the demand market for green hydrogen, which is like a good share to look at, green methanol aspect as well. So these are the distinctions that you can see in terms of how the industry is approaching. Predominantly in India, if I talk about India, there is a big emphasis in terms of utilizing the coal reserves, because we have that asset, I would say, in terms of India, because that has been utilized, that hasn't been utilized in terms of looking at converting into fuel. But there is a lot of emphasis. If the coal is utilized, there's going to be CCUS, technology that would be deployed to reduce the carbon emissions. But there is a strong emphasis in terms of looking at green methanol, which is from the production of green hydrogen and carbon captured CO2. which is also coming from the fact that the National Green Hydrogen Mission document was launched, and there was a significant interest from the industry to look at green methanol as one of the derivatives and how methanol could complement the green hydrogen economies as well. Whenever we talk about green methanol, there is a kind of discussion about the carbon intensity that depends upon different feedstocks, and you can see on your screen if that's visible enough. We came up with a carbon footprint document with a company called Studio Gear Up, which did analysis of the carbon emissions from different various feedstocks to produce methanol. And we could account to about 65 to 95% of different feedstocks. Especially, there was a significant interesting fact with cow manure. We could sort of occur negative carbon emissions as well. So there has been a lot of discussion in terms of looking at the full cycle, that is the life cycle analysis of the whole product, which is looking at green methanol from production to transportation to distribution to looking at the final product as well. So I think there's a big emphasis, especially in Europe, to look at how they could reduce the carbon intensity, and likewise sort of create a policy framework to sort of give incentives to the industry, such as carbon credits, or even slap carbon taxes to encourage the industry and the government sort of to move forward in terms of utilizing green methanol. So you would see there are two different graphs. It's just a distinction about one is on your right-hand side. It talks about the five-fold, manifold increase in terms of the production capacities of methanol, which includes both green, bio, e-methanol, as well as, the fossil fuel is obviously there, which is going to be still there. We utilize coal and natural gas for producing methanol, evidently at this point of time. But we are increasingly looking at different, green feedstocks. You see by 2050, there's going to be an increase of green and biomethanol as per, the industry standards. We do see it's going to be a five-fold, manifold increase in terms of the production capacities. On the left-hand side, that talks about the economics of methanol. It all depends on the kind of feedstock that is available. So if you look at natural gas, obviously it changes every day, and it is dependent upon the current prices at this point of time. I would talk about the India price, which is close to rupees 23 per kg, which is, I would say, the grey methanol price. And we expect that the green methanol is going to be 3 to 4 times higher than what is the grey methanol price, because there's a project that is being done by NTPC, and they predicted they're using flue gas as one of their feedstocks within their power plants, and they sort of predicted to close to about rupees 72 per kg of green methanol. That could be the price, and that is what we are trying to show in the bar graph as well. The gray that you see bars, that is the grey methanol, which is on a global scale, it's close to $300 per per metric tons, and if you look at blue or green, that's eventually going to be 3 to 4 times higher. We predict that if you utilize bio feedstocks, it is going to be somewhere close to 50 to 60 rupees per kg. That is going to be in the middle, obviously. But there is a prediction in terms of, if you utilize green hydrogen, which is, I think, in the previous slides as well, if we look at rupees 2 for hydrogen, rupees 2 per kg for hydrogen, eventually we see that there's going to be a decrease in the cost for green methanol as well, because it's one of its derivatives. So this is basically a map in terms of looking at, how different projects are sort of taking shape and form, the discussions around green methanol, I would say renewable methanol, and we see a huge tide of different, methanol projects coming on board. And I believe close to 18 biomethanol projects were announced globally, looking at, waste, which is obviously something which is taking shape and form in Europe, and even in India. There is a significant interest to look at biogas and looking at biomethanol projects as well. These I will talk about. This is the industry players who are already doing it. So these players already have a business model in place, and they're already exploring the pathway for methanol. Some of them have already, sort of announced projects for production of bio or e-methanol, and you can see, the capacities keeps on increasing. So they have a target of close to 50,000 tons per year to produce up to 250,000 tons per year to produce e or biomethanol. We have huge global players looking at e-methanol, which is the Carbon Recycling International, Liquid Wind, Enerchem. Enerchem is producing methanol from the waste. They have a huge plant in Canada. There is also a significant share of interest from the, traditional oil and gas companies. You can look at Aramco, Total Energies is also there, Sinopec from China. I mean, they are also looking at how they could approach the energy transition within their own, organizations as well, and they feel that green methanol could be one of the low-hanging fruits to move forward with that kind of strategy. This is something which I would like to highlight because on the application side, it's always a chicken and egg situation that we try to address. The industry says we don't have enough supply, and the suppliers say we don't have enough demand. So I think this is something which has sort of addressed the chicken and egg situation. So Maersk is one of the shipping giants who have announced, and I think it's a very historic moment. They recently unveiled their first carbon neutral, I would say, biomethanol shipping container ship at the port of Rotterdam. And this, I think the main reason why I would like to highlight is it's not coming from the government or a regulation. It's mostly coming from the 200 customers who want to look at sustainability aspects, and they have, sort of paid close to 10 to 15% higher amount to procure that green methanol. So it's expensive, but they have taken that risk to move forward with achieving their sustainability goals. So I think this is one of the role models, or I would say the first mover advantage that they want to take, and shipping industry has sort of moved forward looking at this, and close to 10 to 12 partnerships they have formed just on the fact that, Maersk wants to go carbon neutral, and that has sort of ramped up a lot of facilities that you saw that, the different companies, they have expanded their capacities because Maersk is one of their, off-takers, and they require huge amount of, green methanol. OCI, which is one of our member company, they produced biomethanol for this particular carbon neutral ship, and they would also be looking at exploring more pathways, especially, the maritime industry. Just to talk briefly about the opportunities and challenges, and when we speak about India particularly, I think obviously it's one of the low-hanging fruits. We have a huge amount of waste that is being produced. I think that needs to be utilized. We have close to about 60 million tons that we produce annually that could be utilized to look at, producing fuel and biomethanol. I do know there is a lot of discussions of ethanol. There's one thing interesting that we came across while we were speaking with Indian stakeholders that, and it was also mentioned in previous slides as well, previous presentations as well. There's going to be a challenge of water. So it's going to be food versus fuel. And that's the reason the industry sort of came up with a new, I would say, or innovative way of sort of reducing the pressure on the resources and introducing a low-level blend of methanol with ethanol. For the gasoline engines, so which is called the GEM blend, gasoline, ethanol, methanol blends. So that is something which is taking a lot of interest within the industry because eventually they see that, by 2050, India has a very ambitious goal. And to manage that, it's very important we look at very innovative ways how we can diversify the energy mix. So, GEM blend was something which also is being utilized in Italy a lot, and that is something which India is also looking at. So I think it's a very low-hanging fruit that we can look at, which would reduce the cost of ethanol as well and reduce the pressure on the food resources. Introduction of small level of methanol blend, that could also be one of the possibilities. I think why methanol is sort of being picked up quickly is because of the fact that it's an immediate solution which is available today. Methanol is being traded as a commodity product, so it's, the industry is very well versed in terms of handling methanol and transporting and storing because it's liquid at ambient temperature, so it's very easy. and it sort of reduces the cost in terms of utilizing it as a fuel. So I think it's very cost competitive in terms of looking at vis-a-vis biofuels, different biofuels. I think in terms of the challenges, obviously there is one pertinent advantage which we all have talked about, reducing emissions. But in terms of challenges, at this point of time, it's when you look at biomethanol, there is significant amount of resources that is available. There are different feedstocks that is available. But the thing is, how do you amass them and bring them to one particular destination, which is obviously because of the fact that because you don't have that kind of infrastructure facilities or the network to sort of amass those feedstocks together at one particular location. So that is one of the biggest, I would say, challenges. But when you look at e-methanol, the feedstock availability is big question mark, obviously, because we don't have enough green hydrogen available, and we are still at a very nascent stage in terms of looking at CCUS technologies. So that is one side to it. I think policy and regulatory aspects is also something which needs to be considered. Why Europe is sort of moving forward extensively and aggressively in terms of utilizing green methanol is because they have strong policy mechanisms in place to promote, business case for green methanol, or even I would say, biofuels. And that also amounts to the fact that, a significant amount of investments is needed in terms of, having that kind of infrastructure available, building that network, and sort of, promoting more in terms of, the production capacities of green methanol. So I think I would like to end with that. There's a lot of scope to look at green methanol, and maybe, green methanol could also tweak in terms of the diverse energy fuel mix that India has, because I feel that there's no one size that fits all solution. So I think it's something that we need to also consider looking going forward. Thank you very much.